If you're tired of starting over every year, it's time to build the mindset that never quits. Your growth doesn't need permission. It needs commitment, and it starts right now. There comes a moment in every person's life where they ask a simple but life-defining question: am I growing, or am I just going through the motions? It's a haunting question because the answer isn't always easy to face. Most people aren't stuck because they lack intelligence, talent, or opportunity. They're stuck because they've never made the decision to really grow, not just upgrade their skills, but to upgrade their thinking. Not just chase success, but to understand what that success actually means to them. Growth isn't accidental. Growth doesn't happen by chance. Growth is a decision made daily, practiced consistently, and lived intentionally. And here's the truth. Most people wait. They wait for the perfect time. They wait to feel more ready. They wait until the pain of staying the same outweighs the discomfort of change. Most people wait for the perfect moment to begin changing their lives. They tell themselves that once the stress dies down, once they have more money, once the timing feels right, then they'll start, then they'll commit, then they'll grow. But that mindset is a trap. It places the power to change your life in the hands of everything outside of you. And that's why so many stay stuck, not because they're incapable, but because they keep handing their future over to circumstances. The truth is, growth doesn't wait for your situation to improve. Growth happens the moment you decide to rise above your situation. It begins with a choice, a simple, powerful decision to no longer stay where you are. You don't need a miracle. You don't need permission. You don't need to know exactly how it will all play out. What you need is the willingness to look yourself in the mirror and say, "This is not where I stop. This is where I begin." Growth doesn't come dressed in comfort. It comes wrapped in challenge, uncertainty, and discomfort. And most people run from those things, but those who grow are the ones who lean into them. They stop negotiating with fear. They stop giving their excuses power. They stop allowing their current environment to decide what their future will look like. Because they understand one thing that changes everything: they have the ability to choose differently. That choice may not look dramatic. It might be waking up an hour earlier to read. It might be going to the gym even when your body screams no. It might be choosing to be kind when you feel angry. These small decisions often look insignificant on the surface, but underneath them is a quiet revolution, a declaration that you are no longer living life on autopilot. You are taking control. You are choosing growth. Every single day, life hands you opportunities disguised as discomfort. You can either use those moments to stay safe or use them to grow, and that choice, it's entirely yours. Waiting for circumstances to change is like waiting for the wind to blow in your favor without ever raising the sails. Growth is about raising your sails anyway. It's about deciding to move forward when everything around you says stay where you are. Because if you don't choose growth, you choose stagnation by default. There is no neutral ground. You're either moving forward or standing still, and life never rewards stillness for long. The people you admire, the ones who seem to have found their purpose, their energy, their strength, they didn't start there. They started exactly where you are, uncertain, afraid, and unsure, but they made a choice. And not once, but repeatedly, they chose to become more. They chose to do the uncomfortable thing. They chose to build momentum instead of waiting for it. Choosing growth doesn't mean you won't fall. It means you'll get back up faster. It doesn't mean life will suddenly become easy. It means you'll stop needing it to be. It's not about removing the struggle. It's about rising in the face of it. You might not control every external event, but you always control your response. And your response is the beginning of growth. Choosing to be better when you have every reason not to. That is the foundation of personal power. When you look around and see others succeeding, it's easy to assume they had better circumstances, more support, more time, or more luck. But most of the time, they just made a choice sooner. They stopped waiting and started acting. They stopped hoping and started doing. They didn't have all the answers, but they had a reason, and they honored it through their actions. That's what separates those who grow from those who stay stuck. It's not background, talent, or intelligence. It's the decision to take the first step before everything is figured out. The truth is, growth is not granted. It's earned. It's earned every time you do the hard thing instead of the easy thing. It's earned when you turn down instant gratification to pursue something meaningful. It's earned in silence, in sweat, in solitude, in reflection. And it all begins when you stop blaming what's around you and start choosing what's inside you. That is the essence of growth, not waiting, not wishing, but deciding, right here, right now, to live with intention and act with courage. Not because the conditions are ideal, but because you are done allowing them to control you. One of the most common traps people fall into is the illusion that they must have absolute clarity before taking action. They believe that before they can move forward, they need the entire roadmap laid out, every question answered, every risk calculated. So they wait, they plan, they analyze, and then they wait some more. But in the real world, clarity is rarely something you find before you start. It's something you uncover as you move. The more you move, the more things become clear. The more you act, the more feedback you receive. The more decisions you make, the more aligned you become with your true purpose. Overthinking keeps you stuck, while movement creates momentum. The truth is, most people overthink not because they're careful, but because they're scared. Fear disguises itself as logic. It whispers you're being smart, you're just preparing. But the reality is they're hiding, they're stalling. They're waiting for a perfect moment that will never arrive. Because clarity doesn't come from sitting still. It doesn't come from consuming more information or imagining every possible scenario. It comes when you get into motion, when you try, when you stumble, when you learn through doing. There's a kind of wisdom that only shows up when you take the leap. When your feet hit the ground, that's when you truly begin to understand the path you're on. You don't need to have all the answers before you begin. What you need is to trust the process of progress. Action is a teacher that thinking can never be. You can plan for years, but you'll learn more in one day of doing than in 100 days of doubting. Progress gives you perspective. It shows you what works, what doesn't, and what you never even considered. And sometimes, you don't even know what you're truly capable of until you push yourself into motion. There's strength that shows up when you stretch. There's vision that develops when you risk. There's purpose that emerges when you engage with life directly. Movement creates momentum, and momentum is the antidote to doubt. When you're in motion, you build confidence, not because everything is going perfectly, but because you are proving to yourself that you're capable of more than you thought. That confidence builds clarity. It allows you to see with fresh eyes. It strips away the fog of hesitation and brings you closer to who you are meant to become. And the more you move forward, the more your path unfolds. Life rewards movement with insight. Every step is a lesson. Every attempt is a discovery. Think about anyone who has achieved something meaningful. They didn't start with certainty. They didn't wait until they were sure. They started with faith. They trusted that they would figure it out along the way, and they did. Not because they had a magic formula, but because they had the courage to act when others hesitated. That is the difference, not knowledge. Not luck, but the willingness to begin. Movement is the signal to life that you are ready. It's the spark that ignites change. You don't have to run. You just have to take the next step. When you sit in stillness for too long, your mind becomes noisy. You start questioning your worth. You start imagining worst-case scenarios. You start convincing yourself that maybe this isn't the right time, or maybe you're not the right person. That's what overthinking does. It creates problems that don't exist and magnifies fears that were never that big to begin with. But movement quiets that noise. When you act, your focus shifts. You start to pay attention to what's in front of you instead of what's inside your head. You start solving real problems instead of made-up ones, and slowly you begin to build clarity, not as a destination but as a byproduct of engagement. Don't wait for perfect clarity to start, and clarity will meet you on the path. Your journey isn't meant to be mapped out perfectly. It's meant to evolve with you. The path reveals itself as you walk it. The more you move, the more you learn. The more you learn, the more you grow. And the more you grow, the more capable you become of creating the clarity you once believed you needed to begin. What you're looking for won't come from thinking harder. It will come from stepping forward, imperfectly, boldly, and without apology. Comfort is seductive. It convinces you that safety is better than progress, that ease is better than challenge, and that familiar routines are better than stepping into the unknown. But what comfort doesn't tell you is that it comes at a cost, your potential. Comfort zones are not evil, but they are dangerous. Because while they protect you from failure, they also protect you from growth. They give you temporary relief, but long-term regret. Every time you choose comfort over courage, you're quietly telling your potential, not today. And when you do that enough times, days become weeks, weeks become years, and before you know it, you're standing in the same place, wondering why nothing in your life has changed. Growth never happens inside the lines you've already drawn. It lives just beyond what's comfortable, just beyond what you already know. The real breakthroughs, the ones that change your mindset, your career, your relationships, your entire identity, those don't happen when you play it safe. They happen when you stretch yourself, when you lean into fear, when you do the things you've been avoiding. And that process is messy, unpredictable, and often painful. But it's also where the magic lives. The person you want to become doesn't live inside your current habits. That version of you is waiting outside the comfort zone, calling you forward, daring you to take the leap. You might think that staying in your comfort zone is neutral, that you're not losing anything, just maintaining what you have. But that's a lie we all tell ourselves. Because when you avoid discomfort, you're not staying the same. You're slowly shrinking. Muscles that don't get used weaken. Skills that don't get sharpened dull. Dreams that don't get pursued fade. Your potential isn't static. It's either growing or decaying, and the fuel it needs to grow is discomfort. Not pain for the sake of pain, but intentional discomfort. The kind that pushes your limits, challenges your thinking, and forces you to rise to a new standard. People often fear leaving their comfort zones because they don't want to fail. But failure isn't the enemy, stagnation is. Failure at least teaches you something. It gives you feedback. It builds resilience. It sharpens your focus. Stagnation gives you nothing but the illusion of security. And that illusion keeps millions of people locked into unfulfilling lives. Not because they lack talent, but because they lack the willingness to get uncomfortable. They let fear of the unknown outweigh their desire for transformation. They choose familiar misery over unfamiliar opportunity, and that's the real tragedy. You don't have to leap out of your comfort zone in dramatic fashion. Growth doesn't demand massive overnight change. It asks for one simple thing. Do something today that scares you just a little. Speak up when you usually stay quiet. Apply for that role you think you're not ready for. Wake up earlier to work on your goals. Say no when it's easier to say yes. Each of those actions might seem small, but they chip away at the walls of your comfort zone. They remind you that you are capable of more than your routines, more than your fears, more than your excuses. The more you stretch, the more your comfort zone expands. What once felt terrifying starts to feel normal. What once seemed impossible begins to feel within reach. That's how growth works, not in giant leaps, but in small, courageous steps repeated consistently. And every time you push through resistance, you build a new layer of self-belief. That belief becomes your foundation. It becomes the voice that says, I've done hard things before. I can do this too. Confidence is not built by feeling ready. It's built by showing up when you're not. You weren't meant to live a life of safety. You were meant to evolve, to rise, to stretch. And that will never happen inside the walls you've built for yourself. The moment you stop chasing comfort is the moment you start chasing purpose. And purpose, unlike comfort, fills your life with energy, with meaning, with a deep sense of fulfillment. That's the trade-off. Comfort gives you ease, growth gives you life, and you get to choose which one matters more. Every breakthrough you desire, whether it's in your career, your mindset, your relationships, or your health, is hiding behind a door marked discomfort. And no one else can walk through it for you. You must decide whether staying comfortable is worth the price of your unrealized potential. Because if you're not growing, you're slowly giving up on the person you were meant to become. Motivation is powerful, but it's fleeting. It comes in waves, often triggered by inspiration, an emotional high, or a moment of clarity. But like a spark, it burns fast and fades quickly. You can watch a video, hear a speech, read a quote, and feel like you're ready to take over the world. But what happens the next morning when the alarm goes off and the fire is gone? What happens when the excitement wears off and all that's left is the work? That's where discipline steps in. Discipline isn't loud. It's not glamorous. It doesn't rely on how you feel. Discipline is quiet. It's a choice you make again and again, whether you feel like it or not. Most people build their lives on emotion. They act when they feel inspired and stop when they feel tired. But if you only work when you're motivated, your progress will be inconsistent and fragile. You'll keep starting strong and stopping early. You'll experience short bursts of energy, followed by long periods of inactivity. That cycle kills potential. The most successful people in the world aren't the most motivated. They're the most disciplined. They understand that feelings can't be trusted. Emotions change, moods swing, but the goal stays the same. And the only thing that bridges the gap between where you are and where you want to be is consistency fueled by discipline. Discipline is the muscle that drives success. Like any muscle, it needs to be trained, stretched, and tested. You don't wake up with it. You build it, one choice at a time, one habit at a time. It starts with doing what you said you would do, even after the mood you made that decision in has passed. It's about showing up when it's hard, when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, and still putting in the work. That kind of dedication builds momentum. It builds identity. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, you cast a vote for the person you're becoming. You're not just reaching goals. You're becoming someone who keeps going regardless of how you feel. Motivation might get you started, but it will never take you across the finish line. That final push, that relentless pursuit of your potential, that refusal to quit when it's inconvenient, that all comes from discipline. Discipline is what gets you out of bed before the sun comes up. It's what keeps you in the gym when your body is sore. It's what drives you to keep learning when others have stopped. It's not about punishment, it's about commitment. Discipline is the expression of loyalty to your future self. It's choosing long-term growth over short-term comfort. We live in a culture that glorifies motivation and inspiration, but underestimates the real engine behind success. Daily, unsexy, consistent effort. People want to feel hyped. They want to feel excited. But the ones who truly win in life are the ones who are okay with being bored. They don't need external excitement to perform. They understand that real mastery comes from repetition. From showing up on the days they'd rather stay in bed. From saying no to distractions when no one else is holding them accountable. They know that emotion is temporary, but excellence is built on daily disciplines. You'll face days when everything in you says stop. Days when the voice in your head tells you it's not worth it. Days when progress feels slow and invisible. Those are the days that matter most. Because when you push through resistance on the hard days, you build the resilience to thrive on the good ones. Discipline doesn't just move you forward. It changes how you see yourself. You stop needing motivation because you've built trust in yourself. You know that even without the hype, you'll still show up. You'll still do the work. That belief in yourself becomes unshakable. There's a reason disciplined people are often the ones who quietly rise to the top. They're not waiting for the right moment. They're creating it. They're not hoping for the right energy. They're generating it. They understand that time is passing whether they feel inspired or not, and they refuse to let another day go to waste. They work when it's inconvenient. They train when it's uncomfortable. They practice when it's repetitive. Not because they always want to, but because they've decided who they want to become. And that decision matters more than how they feel in the moment. There comes a moment in every person's life when they are faced with a decision that will either keep them stuck or launch them forward. That moment is the decision to take ownership. Not partial ownership, not shared responsibility, but full, unapologetic ownership of your life. It is the recognition that no one is coming to rescue you, that the blame you cast won't change your circumstances, and that the only path to transformation begins with looking in the mirror and saying, "This is on me." That's the turning point. It's where excuses die and growth begins. It's uncomfortable, maybe even painful, because it requires you to stop pointing fingers and start asking hard questions. But it's also liberating, because the moment you own your reality, you gain the power to change it. We live in a world that often encourages blame. It's easy to say your boss, your parents, your past, or even society is the reason you haven't gotten ahead. And maybe some of that is true. Maybe your road has been harder than others. Maybe you've faced injustice, rejection, or trauma. But the brutal truth is this: even if it's not your fault, it's still your responsibility. Life doesn't reward the ones who cry foul. It rewards the ones who take what they have and move forward anyway. Ownership isn't about ignoring your past, it's about refusing to let it control your future. It's about accepting that, from this moment forward, the direction of your life is in your hands. Taking ownership means no longer waiting for ideal conditions. It means not relying on motivation, support, or permission from others. It's about becoming the kind of person who acts regardless of the circumstances. You start looking at your failures differently, not as proof that you're broken, but as evidence that you are learning. You stop waiting for someone to fix your life because you realize the person who can fix it is already here. When you adopt this mindset, everything changes. You approach your goals with a different level of seriousness. You treat your time with more respect. You stop tolerating mediocrity in your effort and habits. One of the most powerful aspects of ownership is that it forces you to be honest with yourself. It eliminates the option of pretending you don't know what needs to change. It holds up a mirror and says, "You're not stuck. You're just not acting." That kind of clarity is rare and it's valuable, because once you stop lying to yourself, you can finally start building something real. You can stop living on autopilot and start living on purpose. You can make intentional decisions that align with who you want to be, not who you've been told you are. When you take ownership, your language changes. You stop saying, "I can't," and start asking, "How can I?" You stop saying, "They did this to me," and start saying, "What can I do now?" That shift in language signals a deeper shift in mindset, from victim to leader, from passive to proactive. And the more you embrace it, the more momentum you build. You become the kind of person others respect, not because you're perfect, but because you're accountable. You become known for showing up, not making excuses. For growing through setbacks, not shrinking because of them. This mindset doesn't just impact your personal goals. It transforms your relationships, your career, your sense of self-worth. When you start taking responsibility for how you show up in the world, you stop being dependent on others to validate you. You stop waiting for recognition or external rewards, because you know your worth isn't tied to what others give you. It's tied to the standards you set for yourself. You stop letting other people's behavior dictate your peace because you've learned to respond instead of react. That kind of power doesn't come from control, it comes from ownership. People who take ownership live differently. They walk into a room and don't look for approval. They look for opportunities to lead. They look at their challenges and don't say, "Why me?" They say, "Watch me." They set goals and don't just wish for them. They create systems, build habits, and take action. They fail and don't crumble. They recalibrate and keep moving. Ownership becomes their identity. It's not just something they do, it's who they are. And once that shift happens, everything becomes possible. Because the person who owns their life owns their future. Most people believe that transformation happens in one big moment. A promotion, a breakthrough, a powerful speech, a winning deal. But real growth doesn't come from grand gestures. It comes from the small, often invisible choices we make every single day. Your future isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in the quiet hours, in the mundane routines, in the moments when no one is watching. It's shaped not by what you do once in a while when inspiration strikes, but by what you do consistently when there's no applause, no feedback, and no immediate results. That's where success is born. It lives in the micro decisions, the decision to get up early, to put in an extra hour, to say no to distractions, to eat better, to read instead of scroll, to show up when it's easier to stay down. We underestimate the compounding power of small steps because we are conditioned to seek instant gratification. We want immediate results, fast recognition, and quick progress. But real change doesn't cater to impatience. Real change compounds slowly and silently, like interest on an investment. Every small act of discipline, every minor sacrifice, every consistent effort may feel insignificant in the moment, but over time, it builds a foundation so solid that no setback can shake it. When you choose to take control of your day, just one day, you begin to take control of your destiny. It's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about doing one thing better today than you did yesterday. That single decision to make progress, however small, is the seed of greatness. Think about it. Every successful person you admire didn't wake up extraordinary. They built themselves brick by brick, decision by decision. They said no to comfort and yes to growth more often than not. They didn't always feel like it, but they acted anyway. And each small, intentional action added up to a result that looked like an overnight success, but wasn't. Success isn't a result. It's a habit. And habits are built on choices you make each day when you could have chosen something easier. The beauty of small decisions is that they're within your reach. You don't need more money, more time, or a perfect plan. You need intention. You need the willingness to act when it's boring, to commit when it's thankless, and to stay consistent when nothing seems to be working. That's what separates dreamers from doers. The doers understand that showing up for yourself today is the most powerful investment in your future. They don't wait for motivation. They build momentum through action. One rep at the gym, one healthy meal, one focused hour, one page read, one uncomfortable conversation, one early morning. Stacked day after day creates a life you're proud of. And this truth applies to every area of your life. Your relationships are shaped by daily communication, presence, and empathy, not dramatic declarations. Your health is shaped by what you put on your plate and how often you move, not crash diets. Your career is shaped by your work ethic, your learning habits, and how you treat people, not just your resume. Small decisions create character, character creates consistency, and consistency creates outcomes. We often ignore these decisions because they don't come with immediate rewards. But that's the secret. Success rewards those who are patient enough to plant seeds and persistent enough to water them daily without seeing results right away. That takes faith. That takes vision. That takes the ability to say, I know this matters, even if I don't see it yet. And that mindset is what will carry you when the journey gets long, when motivation fades, and when no one else believes in you yet. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to choose better today. Make the bed, drink the water, write the plan. Say no to what's stealing your focus. Say yes to what pushes you forward. Because every one of those small wins is a building block. And soon, you'll look back and realize that you didn't just change your habits. You changed your identity. You became the kind of person who chooses growth on purpose every single day. And that's how the future is built. Not all at once, but one small, intentional step at a time.